Hi guys, in today's video we will be discussing the third part to the 6th grade New York Learning Standard for ratio and proportional relationship. On today's agenda we will be defining proportion and defining equivalent fractions. As a reminder, equivalent means equal. An equation has an equal sign, and a variable, which is a letter, any letter, can be used to represent an unknown number. So let's start off by defining proportion. Proportion is an equation that shows that two ratios are equivalent. Remember, equivalent just means equal. And ratios can be written as a fraction. So let's get started with our example. Dina mixed 12 lemons and 2 liters of water to make lemonade. How many lemons will she need to mix with 6 liters of water? So the first thing I want to figure out is, what are the two things that are being compared? Well, I can see from the first sentence that I am comparing lemons to water. So that's what I'm going to use. Lemons and waters. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the information that is known to make a fraction. But before we make a fraction, we want to make sure that because I use lemon as my numerator, anything that's representing lemons has to be on top. And because I use water as my denominator throughout the whole equation, I have to make sure anything related to water is on the bottom of my fraction. Therefore, my first fraction would be 12 divided by 2. Next thing, I want to make a proportional relationship, meaning that I need to find another fraction that would equal up to 12 divided by 2. Therefore, I am going to use L divided by 6. As you guys can see, I use the letter L as my variable. You guys can use any letter that you want, but I wanted to keep it simple. So I use L to stand for lemons. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the fraction that is completed, meaning that I have a known numerator and I have a known denominator. So that would be the left side of my equation, which is 12 divided by 2. Next, I am going to look at my numerator and my denominator to see which one has both known numbers. And as you guys can see, my denominator has both known numbers. So I will be working off of my denominators first. First thing I'm going to say to myself is, how do I get from 2 to 6? Is my number getting greater or is it getting smaller? As you can see, it's getting greater. Therefore, what operation can I use to make my number greater? That would be multiplication. So what can I multiply by 2 to get to 6? The answer is 3. 2 times 3 would give me 6. And remember, whatever I do to my denominator, I must also do to my numerator and vice versa. Therefore, I am going to also multiply my numerator by 3. So when I have 12 times 3, that would give me that L is equal to 36. But I'm not done. I want to make sure that I write it as a sentence. So going back to the question, it says, how many lemons will she need to mix with 6 liters of water? 36 lemons are needed. You can write it in a fuller, completed sentence, but just for space-wise on this slide, I'm just going to keep it as 36 lemons are needed. Now we are done, but I also wanted to show you guys something else. Therefore, 12 divided by 2 is proportional to 36 divided by 6. All I did was substitute my 36 back into this fraction on my right hand side. Now, I also wanted to show you guys the butterfly method. I won't be using the butterfly method throughout this learning standard. I will use it more down the line, but I definitely wanted to show you guys that there is another way. So the butterfly method just states that I will be multiplying diagonally. So as you guys can see, I am going to multiply 2 times L, and that's going to equal 6 times 12. Now, multiplication is commutative, meaning that I can switch the numbers around. So instead of saying 2 times L, I could have also said L times 2. And just like I have 6 times 12, I could have also said 12 times 6. Doesn't matter what multiplication is commutative. But just make sure that you are multiplying diagonally. So now let's make this equation neater. 2 times L would just give me 2L. Remember, multiplication could be written with an X for multiplication, parentheses, or you can just place two things right next to each other. 6 times 12 would give me 72. So now I have 2L equals 72. But I'm trying to figure out what L is, so I need to get L by itself. So because I'm multiplying 2 times L, I need to do the inverse to get L by itself. Since I'm going to be bringing this 2 over to the other side of the equation. That's why I'm doing the inverse, because I'm moving something to the other side of the equation. So because I'm multiplying, I am going to divide both sides by 2. When I divide both sides by 2, this 2 cancels out, because 2 divided by 2 would just give me 1. So now I'm left with 1L. Or I can just say L. So L equals 36, because 2 can go into 72 36 times. Therefore, 12 divided by 2 is proportional to 36 divided by 6. Next, let's get into equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions are fractions that have different numerators and denominators, but have the same value. You can find equivalent fractions by either multiplying or dividing the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So, equivalent fraction example. Find an equivalent fraction using division. So first I'm going to start off with 12 divided by 49. So the first thing I want to figure out is what number can I use to divide 21 and 49? What number do they have in common? What factor do they have in common? So if you don't notice off the back, you can always use the GCF, which is the greatest common factor, meaning that I'm going to take the factor of 21 and the factor of 49 and figure out what is the greatest factor they have in common. So the factors are numbers that divides evenly into another number. So the factors for 21 are 1, 3, 7, and 21. Because 1 times 21 would give me 21, and 3 times 7 would give me 21. Now, my factors for 49 are just 1, 7, and 49. 1 times 49 is 49, and 7 times 7 would give me 49. So looking at both factors, I see that they have 7 in common. Therefore, I can divide both my numerator and my denominator by 7 to find an equivalent fraction. So 27 divided by 7 will give me 3. And 47 divided by 7 will give me, 49 divided by 7 will give me 7. Therefore, my equivalent fraction is 3 divided by 7. Now let's get into our review. "15 pizza pies cost $65. How much will 45 pizza pies cost?" Now I'm going to give you guys 20 seconds. However, if you need more time, you can always pause the video. Okay, time's up. I hope you guys are ready. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a fraction of the two things that are being compared. So I have pizza pies divided by the cost. So I know that for 15 pizza pies will cost $65. And my equivalent fraction would be 45 divided by C. So I already know that there are 45 pizza pies. I'm just trying to find out the cost of them. So I'm going to use C for cost. Next, I am going to, since I have both my numerators, I'm going to figure out how do I get from 15 to 45. And I could just multiply by 3. So 15 times 3 will give me 45. And whatever I do to the numerator, I'm going to also do to the denominator. Therefore, 65 divided by 3, times 3, will bring me to the cost of $195. But I'm not done, because you always want to make sure that you write a sentence. Therefore, 45 pizza pies will cost $195. Next, let's get into our equivalent fraction review. Miss Luna surveyed her class of 36 students on their favorite pizza toppings. Out of every 6 students surveyed, 4 students chose pepperoni as their favorite topping. How many students chose pepperoni as their favorite topping? I'm going to give you guys 20 seconds, but once again, just for the sake of the video, but once again, you can always pause it if you need more time. Okay, that's time. So we are comparing pepperoni to the total. Pepperoni toppings to the total amount of kids that was surveyed. So we know that out of 36 of her kids, well, actually, we know that out of 6 of the kids that were surveyed, 4 of them chose pepperoni. So our total would be 6, and our pepperoni would be 4. So 4 divided by 6. Next, we know that we need to find out how many students chose pepperoni as their favorite topping over the total amount of children that she had in her class. So that would be P divided by 36. Now, once again, you can use any letter, but I'm just going to use the first letter of whatever I'm trying to find out. In this case, it's pepperoni, so P. So since my left hand side is completed, that means that I'm going from left to right. And since my denominator are both known, I'm going to figure out, what do I have to do to get from 6 to 36? 6 times 6 will give me 36. Therefore, whatever I do to the denominator, I must also do to the numerator. So I'm going to multiply by 6 on the top. When multiplying by 6 by the top, 4 times 6 will give me that P equals 24. But I'm not done. Because remember, you always want to put it into a sentence. They asked us how many students chose pepperoni as their favorite topping. Therefore, 24 students prefer pepperoni pizza topping. Thank you for watching once again. Click on the like button and subscribe to my channels to keep up with my latest videos.